Seems like every couple of years we discuss the potential of a London Grand Prix, or we see reports in the media, and that's the case again. There's a company called the London Collective that have put together a proposal, a £250 million plan for a temporary street circuit in the east of the city, in the Docklands region. That region currently already hosts the Formula E race around the ExCeL Centre, which is in the middle of this proposal that has been put forward as well. That would be the pit lane facility on the ground floor there, which is currently actually the loading bay, and the ExCeL Centre, hosts all sorts of events in London. Now, on the surface, this looks like a great plan. There's some really interesting bits in it. There's a really nice, funky art picture or rendering of what it might look like, but it seems a very, very long way away from happening. From everything we've been told, there's no actual discussions taking place between Formula One and the company putting this plan together. And it does seem like a very, very far-fetched idea, even today, for there to be a London race for a lot of reasons. Now, this seems less far-fetched than the idea of a race through the centre of the city, which was a report we had a few years back. But Formula One has never really seemed that enamoured by anything other than that. And that was Bernie Ecclestone. We've got a whole new ownership now in Formula One. They clearly prioritize street circuits. They clearly like the idea of street circuits. If you think about the next race is Saudi, which is one of the newest venues on the circuit. There's Vegas coming up later this year, which is obviously a completely game-changing event that utilizes the very heart of that city to put on a race. The difference with Vegas compared to what this would be is, or at least what the plan looks like currently, is that F1 and Vegas are building a permanent facility down there. And the idea is that they'll race together for as long as, I guess, is earthly possible, even though the contract hasn't laid it out as formally as that yet. So a London Grand Prix has a lot of things it needs to tick off first. It has to show to Formula One it's a long-term venue. It has to show that the money's there. That's one thing that Saudi and Vegas clearly have no issues with at the moment. There's also the other small matter of what the future would be for Silverstone if there ever was a London Grand Prix. Silverstone doesn't have a contract beyond 2024, but much like the stories of a London race, one thing Silverstone always seems to have is question marks over its future, and that will be the case, as soon as we hit 2024, and it always seems a deal is struck very, very late to add a few years. It's one of the most popular venues on the calendar, incredible fans, incredible support every year. It seems very unlikely Formula One would ever move away from that. Now, that's not to say a London race would have to replace Silverstone, but the other issue Formula One has, and the other issue that Formula One's very conscious of, is the fact that the calendar right now is huge. There should have been 24 races on the calendar this year. There's only 23 because China was cancelled. But finding spaces for all these races is becoming increasingly difficult. And that means that these races have to bring added value. They have to prove that they're worthy of a space on the grid, which often would come at the expense of an existing venue. That's very, very difficult to do. F1 was in talks with South African circuit Kyalami last year. It seemed really certain that was going to be on the calendar this season. It didn't happen. And now it seems like talks have stalled again. There's not really been much talk out of South Africa about the future of that race. So very, very difficult for venues to get a race on the calendar these days. So I'm not saying London will never happen, but right now it seems very, very, very far away from being a likelihood. And I think that plans really have to advance. I think that the people putting the event on have to show that there is a long-term commitment from them, but the ability for Formula One to make that part of London home for them. And I don't know whether Formula E staying there helps them do that. But yeah, as it stands, the reports we've seen today look great and might make a very, very interesting race, but is not very high on the list of things that are likely to happen in the next few years, unfortunately.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.